Hello and welcome to the Sanford Museum. My name is Brigitte Stephenson, curator of the Sanford Museum, and today we are celebrating 65 years of helping people discover Sanford history. We invite you to come out to our either free event, Promenade in the Park, where people are invited to wear their interpretation of late 19th century clothing, picnic and play some old-timey games in the park. So, how did the Sanford Museum become the Sanford Museum? The Sanford Museum is actually a museum within a museum. The original building was a one-room replica of Henry Shelton Sanford's library at the Homestead, the family's estate in Derby, Connecticut. Visitors entering the museum's double doors today are looking at the first museum's facade. The focal point of the museum's lobby, which also features changing exhibits and elegant chandeliers that once lighted former City Hall, is the original building's front porch columns and roofline. Just behind what now is the front desk is the original library. Visitors entering through a doorway off the west side of the lobby can step back into time as they enter the city founder's library. The meticulous measured shelves lining the library walls contain Sanford's eclectic collection of books. Some were antiques in his lifetime. The rest are first editions by his contemporaries in history, science, laws, politics, religion, and popular fiction. An adjoining room, added later, provides an exhibit space for a collection of 19th century decorative arts which belonged to the Sanford family. The Sanford Museum, twice expanded and renovated since it was opened in 1957, is much more than a memorial honoring its namesake. Exhibits illustrate the city's history and heritage, from the indigenous people who lived here to baseball stars who trained here and the citrus and celery that boomed our economy. And just about every day, museum staffers and volunteer docents help contemporary Sanford residents research more about their city, especially newcomers who are renovating some of the city's grand old homes. We invite people to look and do a little bit of genealogy of their home when they come in. The museum that carries the city's founder's name was originally the Henry Shelton Sanford Memorial Library and Museum. What a mouthful. It took more than 50 years for Corolla Sanford Dow to carry out the wishes of her late mother. This would start our collection. When her will was made public in 1902, Mrs. Henry Sanford expressed her desire that the people of Sanford have her husband's library so they might learn about their nation. In early 1940s, the Sanford's DAR chapter accepted the task of building a memorial for the city's founder using his library, a task that would also include the creation of what would become the Sanford Historical Society. 50 years after the death of Henry Sanford, Mrs. Dow was present at the Sanford's Woman Club at the 1941 Founders' Day tea held by the DAR when the woman suggested taking the museum's plan before the City Commission. Mayor W.C. Hill at the February 10th Commission meeting set a February 13th date for a community meeting, inviting all civic clubs to participate in a cooperative effort to build the museum. That meeting led to the appointment of the Sanford Memorial Library Association with its goals of perpetuating the memory of the city's founder with a permanent memorial building, securing a fireproof replica of the Henry Sanford's Connecticut Library for his books and painting. Local Sanford architect Elton Moten, who had designed many of Sanford's historical buildings, such as the Old City Hall, the Cultural Arts Building, and the Mayfair Inn, drafted tentative plans for a colonial-style fireproof masonry building with the colonial columns and a portico resembling the Sanford Homestead in Connecticut. Mildred Caskey, the first curator and museum trustee in the 1970s, described the museum's design as, quote, a classic building standing like an elegant dowager. Mrs. Jane Sanford Panza, the oldest granddaughter of Henry Sanford, turned the first shovel of dirt at the April 10, 1956 groundbreaking. One of the Sanford's cousins, Gifford Cochran, attended the ceremony and an earlier ceremony honoring the city founder. Also in attendance of the groundbreaking was Dr. Alfred J. Hanna, the Vice President of Rollins College, and a Mrs. Catherine A. Hanna, a member of the Florida Park Board, who gave a history of Henry Sanford. Also in 1956, the Connecticut Historical Society, which since 1919 had controlled the correspondence and other papers of Henry Sanford, released the letters and documents to Rollins College for storage until the Sanford Museum was completed. At one point, the papers were in the Tennessee State Library because they were making a microfilm copy in 1959. You can actually see these microfilm copies at our museum today. On January 20th, 1957, a truck carrying 199 boxes, each showing the handwritten identification by Mrs. Dow, arrived in Sanford. Association members supervised unloading and inspection. Included in the shipped items were several life-size paintings and a small bust of Henry Sanford completed in 1962. Finally, February 8, 1957, the museum was dedicated. Setting up the library and cataloging donations took several months, and the museum and library opened to the public on December 6, 1957, with limited hours and a part-time librarian. The original museum was never large enough to accommodate all the items Mrs. Dow had donated. By the early 1970s, Mrs. Romelet, Mrs. Troy Ray Sr., and Mrs. S.O. Chase Jr. joined the city's architects Gutman, Dragish, and Matz, and the contractor W.S. Brumley Jr., and planning a two-wing expansion. In November of 1957, the museum once again opened to the public. Now, even with that expansion, these wings were not large enough for the proper storage of the Sanford papers. They remained in the bank vault. So, once again, another expansion took place. Completed in 1994, it wrapped a larger Mediterranean revival-style building designed by Burke, Bales, and Mills Associates, Inc. around the original library with the original facade, roofline, and porch columns incorporated into the lobby. The expansion also included climate-controlled vault that allowed the museum to move the Sanford papers from the bank. The expansion also included expanded galleries for exhibits on local history, allowing the museum to begin collecting Sanford's history on a large scale. At the dedication on February the 27th, 1994, the museum's name changed from the Henry Shelton Sanford Memorial Library and Museum to the simpler Sanford Museum, to better reflect the museum's dual mission of collecting and exhibit items relating to both the city and the man Henry Shelton Sanford. Today, we pride ourselves being able to help visitors all around the world discover both the fascinating life of Henry Sanford, but the equally as interesting history of the greater Sanford area. We look forward to seeing you September 10th, and for you to buy a ticket to our Night at the Museum event to help continue the legacy of the Sanford Museum into the future. Thank you.